Very good evening to one and all present here. Today, we're going to do some work with arts, and we have Mr. Sridhar, who's been assistant professor in MSSW and who's now pursuing his higher studies, PhD. He's a research scholar at NIMHANS. So he's with us today, and he's going to teach us some techniques we are going to practically apply and learn. So I give it on to Sridhar to go ahead. First, you please kindly introduce yourself as like how you want to be called or portrayed, and then we can go ahead with
Oh,
what you have planned for us. Thank you, Sridhar.
fine. Thank you. So, a very good evening, everyone. So, firstly, I would like to thank Soumya ma'am for giving this opportunity to facilitate a session on fluid art technique. So, as ma'am mentioned, I'm Sridhar. I'm a PhD scholar. I'm doing my PhD in psychiatric social work with my research focus on cognitive and creative therapies. So, primarily, I'm using art forms to promote the mental health of persons with a gender non-binary identities and how it can be integrated with cognitive approaches. So that is what my research is focusing on. So with this, we'll get into today's session. So the session will be like it will go for 35 to 40 minutes. So what we'll do is for the first 15 minutes or so, we'll be focusing on the theoretical aspects of fluid art. After that, we'll get on an hands-on activity. So it will be good if all of us have keep the paintings ready with us. So some of the stationaries that we need is like paintings. We need paintings. If and if you have canvas, that will be really good. If not, try to like keep some thick sheets as we are going to use paintings. And then we may need some paper cups to mix and pour painting. So and a station like you keep spread some newspapers and all so that you can avoid spilling of the paint. So these all are some of the like basic stationaries that we require. So with this, we'll get into the session. If you have any questions, once the like session gets over, you can like ask the question. Okay. So with this, we'll start with this. As Thomas Merton mentioned, art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time. So this is something very much applicable to all the creative approaches, including fluid art. So as we are aware that fluid art is used as a technique in expressive arts therapy. So as we know that expressive art is a multimodal approach integrating visual art, movement, music, and writing and other forms. So here the focus is on the process rather than the product, and it helps us to encourage, explore ourselves, our emotions, and express it. And it is used in individual and groups. So with this, we are coming to fluid art. As the name says, fluid art is a form of art that uses free flowing paint. The paint is usually a runny consistency of similar or varying densities. When the paint is combined with different additive and poured on a surface, it creates an organic, abstract form of artwork. So it's basically a visual art technique which involves free flow. So that is one of the core components of fluid art. As the name says, fluid. Here we are using the free flow technique. So it is also called as liquid art, pouring paint, pouring art, or some of the other names of fluid art. So here the emphasis is on the spontaneity and predictability and the color play. So as I mentioned, the outcome of the fluid art is something depends on the movement and flow. So this is how usually fluid art will look, as you can see in the screen. So with this, we are getting into a question that is like most common when it comes to fluid art. So is fluid art a real art? So as you can see in the screen, in one end, this is a fluid art, and this art form is called as a representative art. Okay, because it represents something that is like a very straightforward art. So whenever we talk about fluid art, people will say that oh, fluid art is not a real art. So I would like to hear from the participants. So what do you think? Is fluid art a real art? If you feel it's a real art, why you are feeling it in that way?
Anyone can answer, please.
Yes.
I feel it as real because we are expressing our emotions through the art.
Mm.
Whatever we feel inside, no, we are putting it into that art. Uh, uh, it may not represent in figures, it, but it represents our emotions. I feel in that way. It may not be
Yes.
a complete image, or we can name it like that. It flows, as you said, it's a fluid art. It flows in the painting. It just like it flows, and finally it gives some picture through which we can find out our emotions. That is what.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, anyone wants to add along with what is shared?
Yes, Sridhar. Like I thought, since you had said like fluid art is a for free flowing art, right? So we are using a free flowing state, an abstract form of art. So we are mixing it with various different densities, like, and then we're just pouring it on a surface, and then we are trying to make an art out of it. Though it is an abstract form an art, it is unpredictable, right? Because it varies among each person who was doing it. So definitely, it is a real art actually, because it shows that our present mind state, through which, because based on that only we do all the mixing and pouring and making that art. I think.
Yes. So thank you, ma'am. As Vidya ma'am and Govinda ma'am mentioned, the most important point is when it comes to fluid art, as she mentioned, it is something unpredictable. Okay, when it comes to any form of art, I mean, in many forms of art, we know what is the outcome. So I know that I'm going to draw a peacock. I know I'm going to draw a seashore, a sunset. But when it comes to fluid art, here the artist has no control over the outcome. So the artist is not going to have any idea about how the outcome is going to look like. So that is one of the most important aspects that sets fluid art aside, the unpredictability. Okay. And some of the other characteristics of art that is like aligning with fluid art is, so it is artistic process. So though fluid art may look like very simple, it requires a dedication. It requires us to process various things. So it is something artistic in nature. And second thing is unique creation. So each fluid art is like a fingerprint. So even when the artists want to recreate something, you may not be able to recreate the same fluid art. Each one is like very, very different. So that is a very important thing. And it is something, it talks about a lot of expression. So again, very beautiful thing about fluid art are many forms of abstract art. Fluid art is something that falls under the category of abstract art. If you say abstract art, the beauty about abstract art is when it comes to representative art. So for example, if there is an image of a peacock, okay, anyone who sees that, they know that, okay, it's image of a peacock. When it comes to abstract art, like fluid art, here and the many artists like say that it is incomplete, which means the person who sees the art, viewer, he is the one who completes the art. Because if I give a fluid art, if I ask to like say what comes to my mind when I see that fluid art, what I am expressing might be totally different from what Vidya ma'am or Gomali ma'am or someone else is like expressing. So which means fluid art is there, we are going with our own experiences and we are completing it. So in that way, each fluid art is going to give different meaning to different person. So the expression is something very important here. And as I mentioned, it has it involves a lot of techniques and skills as well. It has a lot of science behind it that we'll be like briefly discussing. So all this makes fluid art as a form of art. So, what is a brief history? Many times, like people just seeing that pouring paints together, people think it is a very very shallow thing. It doesn't have history. But the thing is, like fluid art itself has a rich history. So basically, it is like started by a person called David Alfro. He is an artist as well as a political activist. So once accidentally, David Alfro um, developed this approach. Basically, he was stumbled upon and like he developed this approach where he started to realize that when different paints are like mixing without any intention, it gives different shapes depending on the density, depending on the velocity, depending on the materials, depending on the interaction. Each one brings a different pattern. This made David Alfano to think a lot about how the paint's colors interact with each other and how the forms that it brings is something beyond our imagination. So he got very much inspired by this idea of the colors interacting in a free flow movement. Then he started to focus more on that and he developed this approach of fluid art. So later, many other people like followed his footpath and they did a lot of researches and here, as it mentioned, that fluid art is a combination of art and science. So David Alferno's like a close friend who's from a physics background also worked on this. So a lot of people from the physics, a lot of people from the chemistry, they did a lot of research in fluid art. So basically, any fluid art is a combination of art and science because it has a lot of fluid dynamics involved in this. So for example, we'll have a look at this video. It's a short video that talks about the science behind fluid art, how these colors interact. Just I think I'm not able to play this. Okay, probably like I'll
You
play
can
it.
you can change the presentation by just typing that link on YouTube, and you can present it.
Yes, we'll do it. Yeah, is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
If it's difficult, it's fine, Sridhar. If you can try, it's okay.
Probably I'll share. Is it not visible? I thought it is like playing. Is it
No,
not playing?
no, it's not playing.
Oh, okay, okay. I
It's
thought
okay.
then.
You can do whatever is feasible and convenient.
Okay, fine. So I'll just try one last time. If it's not playing, then like we'll continue the presentation. I'll share the link
Sure.
later. I think it's not coming. Anyways, we'll continue the presentation. Okay, I think now it is visible, right? You are able to see the YouTube page. Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Is there a voice for this?
I think it has, but because of some, I don't know why we are not getting the audio.
All right.
So this is how like when you are like blending the paints. So this is how like they react to each other. So it is like the fluid dynamics behind fluid art, how it works in terms of the scientific background. As you could see here, they experimented with black and white pigments. So this is a microscopic view of how the cells, the one important part about fluid art is the cells and shapes that we are getting. So it talks about how the cells are formed when two different pigments interact. So the important thing that we have to keep in mind when you're talking about when you're doing fluid art is the density. So at times like when you want to give a dense and lighter view, we can pick paints accordingly. When we are picking like unintentionally we are picking two different brands paint or two different like pigments, that will have different densities, so that will affect the outcome as well. So that is an important point that we have to keep in mind. So here they tried this with an orange and like light red pigments. So Alferno believes that in fluid art, the artist is just a facilitator. The fluid itself is the one that creates the painting. Creating the paint. So that is what unique approach that Alferno took when it comes to fluid art. So with this, we'll continue our presentation. So that is like a simple fluid dynamic science behind it. Moving to the next part. So as you could like see, this fluid art is something has a relation with something called process art. So again, process art is something which is a form of art developed by Robert Morris and a few other people like Bruce Nauman and Kate. So this process art, what is the connection between fluid art and process art? Fluid art is a kind of process art. So what do you mean by process art? Process art is an artistic approach that emphasizes the process and the act of artistic creation rather than the actual finished work that comes out of it. So basically, this process art is from a movement called Robert Morris. So he written about this in his article called Anti-Form, where he says that process artists were aiming for rather than object type. So it is not something you want something representational. So process art is something that focuses on flexibility, and the rejection of artistic orthodox. We're not just critical when it comes to artist or concept, but also apply to the way the art is displayed. So basically, process art is an art where we use like there is no one way to do your painting, do your art. So you can, it is something the artist has the freedom to use whatever he wants to use. So in Robert's work, he uses like burnt what ashes. He used hairpins. Whatever he find, he started to use that as a medium to create art. So it says that art is not something that should be in a four frame that should look very beautiful. Art itself is a rebellious act. So that need to be like beyond the orthodox. So that is an important thing about process art, which is aligning with the concept of fluid art as well. So some of the theoretical, before getting the hands-on, some of the theoretical underpinnings that we have to keep in mind is fluid art is something that can be seen in various theoretical approaches. One is humanistic psychology. So fluid art is something that talks about self-expression. So which color you are going to choose, which color you want to add with which color, and are you going to tilt, how are you going to move it, so what is the thing you are trying to do, so all this, and when you see the fluid art, what is the thing that comes to your mind, all these are the form of like self expression. And it also goes with the expressive arts therapy, as it's about, it creates a healing experience. And flow theory. So flow theory talks about the engagement in creative activity that improves our mental well-being. And meaning making theory. So Robert Kagan proposed meaning making theory, basically how we interpret things. So again, fluid art is something each people will interpret in their own way. So what makes us to interpret a fluid art is depends on our childhood, our culture, how we perceive the society, various factors involved. So in that way, fluid art is something, it may look like a blend of paintings, but what comes to our mind when we see fluid art talks a lot about our own life, our own like emotions. And it is something again Gestalt's approach is involved. The awareness that we get, the sensory awareness, and there are a lot of studies being done to understand how fluid art activates the different areas of our brain. So, what is the objective in a therapeutic session? So, where what is the objective of fluid art? So, basically, fluid art is something that expresses emotional expression through different colors and movement, and it encourages mindfulness. It is a stress relieving process, and it reduces perfectionism. So, as we said, fluid art is not about being perfect. It is about investing ourselves in the process, not on the outcome. And it increases the acceptance of uncertainty. So, as we talk about uncertainty, fluid art itself is a very uncertain process. And it integrates sensory processes, and it helps us to articulate our feeling without any words. For example, when someone wants to do something with red and white, so it talks a lot about what they're going through, and it builds a therapeutic alliance. So when we are giving a space for our clients to like do whatever they want in that space, so that creates a therapeutic alliance. So that is something which we have to keep in mind. So as we mentioned, what are the like materials required? Acrylic paints and canvas. So preferably canvas is good, if not any thick papers, and a cup to mix our paint, and sticks to mix, and gloves. And fluid art itself is a it is a very messy process. So you'll be paints will be spilling around, all those things may happen. So it is always good to have gloves, newspapers, or plastic cars to prevent the spilling on the floor. What are the techniques? There are various techniques are there in fluid art. So in today's session, we are going to see very few techniques. So one is called dirty pour. It is also called like open pour. So here what we'll do is we'll see a video example as well. Here what we'll do is in a cup, the paint will be added one after another, and that paint cup will be like poured in the canvas. So we'll see an example of that. Then the second one is a flip cup. So here it is something, the inverted paint cup. Here it is something very similar to like dirty pour, but here the thing is like here instead of pouring it, we'll be flipping the cup on the canvas, and when we like open it, it gives a very different texture and very different like impression. So that is one thing, and the third thing is like a puddle pour. So this is the one thing that my favorite, and the one thing that I usually do. So where the colors are like poured in the puddle form. So we'll also see a video of that as well. How it happens? So the step is, first thing is we need to keep our like workplace like clean with the newspapers, all the required items, all those things. And second thing is mixing the pouring. So it is good to have pouring mediums. If you don't get pouring mediums, so like you can find these kind of like fluid art paints in all the like stationaries. That is something you can use. And apart from that, you can like use pouring medium. So you can find pouring medium itself in all the stationaries that you can take. In case if you don't have pouring medium, the glue that we find, so those glue can be like also used. That is something to keep in mind. And tilt. So tilt means it is what? It is the process of moving the canvas. So once we like made the paint, so the way the movement, so as we talked about, so this is the like what pouring medium that you can use. And the canvas. So tilt means, for example, after pouring it, how I'm going to move it. So this movement is called tilt. So this can be rotational or sideways, but what is always advisable is whenever you're placing your canvas to do the pouring medium, it is good to have base. For example, instead of keeping it on the floor, you can keep it on something like this, so that when you want to lift it up for like movement tilting, it will be easy. Otherwise, if you are like keeping it on the floor, taking it once you like pour the paint becomes like very difficult, and that will affect your impression. So these all are some of the important things to keep in mind. So with this, I'll move to the next one. So as you can see, these all are like some of the fluid art which I made. So as you could see, like each one, all these like we used pouring, puddle pouring only. So I'm like, as I mentioned, I'm more like fond of the puddle pouring. So I use puddle pouring to create like these paintings. So now we'll get into the demonstration. So what I'll do is I'll play like a small video to see how like fluid art works. After that, we can do something on our own. Just give me a minute. I'll open the video. So what I'll do is first I'll like play a short video. Next one will be bit elaborate, because what happens is many times like by seeing the YouTube shorts, people think like fluid art itself is something very like 5 minute process. It doesn't require much effort, but it is a very like intense process. So first I'll play a short. After that I'll like give a bit detailed video. Then we'll move into our hands-on session. Sharing the presentation. Is the screen visible?
It's visible.
So this is an example of dirty pour or like open cup pour. So as you could see, the layer of paints will be added one after one in a paint, and the artist will be they'll be pouring it on the canvas. But whereas in the puddle pouring, we'll be like adding them separately. Here it will be added layer after layer in one cup, and it will be like transferred to the canvas. So this is the one way. The second one we'll take a look at is puddle pouring. So for this one, like I selected a detailed video than a shorts so that we'll understand like how they do. At the same time, due to time constraint, I may not able to like play the full video. We'll just see the glimpse of that, and we'll get into our answer. As you could see here the paints will be put separately instead of putting them together in one cup. It is always advisable to have 3 to 4 colors minimum for a fluid art so that like when they blend, that will give a very rich texture and impression. So basically, whatever the like 3 or 4 colors that you are like selecting, that will be poured repeatedly. Like first layer, first color, second color, third color, fourth color. Then in the same place, we'll be going with the first color so that it will create that like the puddle effect, and that will start to spread all over the canvas when we are doing the tilt. So once the paint is like set, we'll be doing this tilt. So the most important part about fluid painting is the density. Like if it's like too dense, it may not like able to spread. So in that case, it is advisable to like add it with the uh, glue, or you can find the fluid like thinner itself, the gel thinner. You can like add on to it so that it can have that free flow movement. At the same time, it should not be like completely liquidy, not very much like highly dense. It should have a balance where it can have the free movement. This is the reason why we always need to like keep the place with lot of newspapers or covers so that our floor will not get lower. So this is already window. So any any doubts like from what we have, like anything, any points before moving forward? Is there anything anyone wants to add or ask?
Are we going to try this now? Are we going to try this now, Sridhar? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Am I audible?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Sorry, I think there is some just a minute. Yeah, sorry, there
Are
was
we
some
going to
audio
try
issue.
it?
Yes, so shall we move on to the hands-on? Is there anything anyone want to like add or ask before that?
So if we've understood, I think we can put a thumbs up.
Yes, please.
Yeah. You
Okay.
can just keep pouring it, right? Even if you don't know the exact concept of how to
Yes,
do.
especially when we are doing our like first fluid painting, it will be like what it may not come up like very what this thing visually appealing, but again that is the idea of fluid art itself. It need not be like visually appealing. The focus is more on the process rather than how the outcome looks. So we can like take a canvas or a paper, and we can like either the first method. If you want, if you have a cup, you can follow the open cup method where you can like pour all painting layer by layer in one and start to transfer it to canvas, or you can do the second one, puddle pouring. So you just take paint and start pouring, and once it is like settled, you can like tilt it. So don't worry about like how it looks, it is about the process. That is what fluid art is. So shall we start? Yes. So how much time like shall we take?
It's up to you, based on your
Okay.
instructions. They're not. There's not constraint.
Okay, ma'am. Then like shall we take 15 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, so now it is 7:40. So we can like work on it. So sit comfortably. That is very important because you have to move like to tilt and to like mix paint and all. So you can sit comfortably and start your like painting. By 7:55, we'll come back.